Welcome to Tell Me a Story channel. Let's tell your story in a unique way. Wife left me 2 weeks after marriage, and I don't understand. It's destroying me. Hello, Reddit. I want to tell you a strange tale. Story of my wife who left me 2 weeks after getting married and sued me for divorce and accused me of rape and wanted $20,000 in settlement. But it's not your typical gold digger who wanted money story. No. This story isn't like that at all. It gets weird. I am still very much puzzled, and I would like to know what you think. This is how I ruined my life. I am a Korean American who grew up in the US, and I spent my 20s in South Korea teaching English. And I met a girl. Cute little Korean girl. We worked in the same building for about a year, just as friends, and then we began dating. We got married after 3 months of dating. Guam was our honeymoon, and we got an apartment in Korea and started to live together. I remember a lot of giggles and countless hours just hugging each other on the bed, feeling each other breathe. It was wonderful. 2 weeks after the wedding, one day my wife returned from grocery shopping and she just went batshit insane. Her face was slightly red and she started to scream at me and threw the groceries all over the floor. This sudden escalation was so unprovoked and uncharacteristic of her normal behavior, I was just completely flabbergasted. Like, what the fuck? It was so random and shocking that I wasn't feeling angry at all, but immediately started to suspect there was something seriously wrong. Hormone issues. I don't know. I tried to calm her down as best I could, and I called my mother-in-law, Mill, from now on. Mill immediately called my wife, and they talked for a good hour alone over the phone. And then Mill called me again and told me to send her back to Dago, where my wife's family lives. She told me that my wife is sick and needs to go to the hospital in Daegu. I told her that I will take her to the big hospital near where we are, but then Mill freaked out and told me not to do that, and only bring her to Daegu where she knows a good hospital. My wife wanted to go to Daegu as well, so I drove her back. She seemed a lot calmer, so I dropped her off and drove back and went to work the next day. There was absolutely no contact over the next 2 days. I called my wife, Mill, father-in-law, Phil from now on, her brother, grandparents, but nobody answered my call. This zero communication was just so frustrating, so I just drove to Daegu again to see what the fuck was going on. When I arrived, Mill and Phil both let me in and they had me sit down with them. And they began to tell me that my wife is now very mentally ill and she needs long-term treatment. For some reason, I did not suspect this answer at all. I just thought this was just some sudden stress-induced tantrum that can be seen from some women going through life changes. Sort of like how even good girls can turn into bridezillas during wedding prep. That's what I honestly thought it was. I was so shocked at how my wife, who I knew for the previous year and dated and married, could be mentally ill so suddenly. I didn't see any crazy behavior from her at all. And I had a million questions. But Mill abruptly ended the meeting and pulled me away from the doctor, and we went outside. I observed my Mill paying for the hospital visit in cash, as she did not use the Korean national health insurance at all. I later learned that this was not to leave any paper trails of the visit that can be looked up in national health insurance records. Mill and Phil both emphasized that she is sick because of the wedding and marriage that happened. They told me that I should have been more accommodating to their daughter and treated her better. I apologized to them and they told me to go back and wait quietly. So I did. Some of you might wonder why I didn't press the issue further, but in Korean culture, especially to the in-laws, I was not supposed to disrespect them by going against their words. Especially when my wife was so ill. I thought leaving it to whatever they felt comfortable was best for her. Days went by and still zero contact. I got very anxious and tried all means of communication to my wife, brother-in-law, Bill from now on, her grandparents, and Phil, but nobody responded. So I drove up to where Bile worked and tried to talk to him in person about what's happening. When he saw me, he literally ran downstairs to run away from me. What the fuck? But it was a small building, and I caught up to him, and he was very nervous. When I tried to talk to him, all he said was, "It's between you two. I don't know anything," and he ran away again. This time, I didn't follow him. I was completely shocked yet again about what just happened. About 10 minutes later, Mill called me, finally, and she told me to leave her son alone and just talk to her instead. She then told me that my wife is still very sick and she needs more time until she can return to me. She was insistent that the best thing for me to do was just wait until she recovers. I decided to stay put. A week went by and my Mile and Phil suddenly appeared at my door. I let them in and Mill started to gather my wife's things. I asked what was happening and Phil suddenly told me, "You're not supposed to have oral sex." What the fuck? Then he explained to me that the reason why my wife is so suddenly sick is because I forced her to have oral sex and performed oral sex on her. He explained that this is a very despicable thing to do and I should be ashamed. Completely taken back, yet again, I explained that I never forced her to do anything and what we did was consensual, and she did not have any issues whatsoever. Furthermore, I told them that what we do as married couples on a bed is really private and should not be a topic of discussion, even from her parents. But Phil and Neil refused to reason with me and just kept telling me that having oral sex is a terrible thing and any woman will be mentally ill after engaging in such shameful behavior. Then I completely lost my shit and yelled at them for the first time. Well then fucking 99s of the world is mentally unstable. Don't sit there and pretend that you guys never do it. I then told them to get out and they left with some of my wife's belongings. A few days later, I received divorce lawsuit papers in my mailbox. My wife was suing me for divorce and $20,000 in settlement. She claimed that I raped her continuously during the 2-week marriage, and I abused her emotionally and mentally. She wrote that she now has all these mental conditions because I sexually abused her. I couldn't think straight for a while and I just could not believe what I was reading. The woman of my life, the woman that I married just a few weeks ago, was suing me for divorce. Not only that, she was writing all these horrible things vilifying me as some American sex predator. A few years ago, there was a big scandal of English teachers from America having sex with many Korean women and filming in secret. And what was more astonishing was the complete set of recordings. She submitted recordings of our conversations, dating back all the way to our first date. She was running a recorder, on her phone maybe, continuously during our dates, and she recorded all of our phone conversations. She attached parts of our conversations that would represent me as horny Americans when we were just mindlessly flirting or joking. I am not sure if she recorded our sex, but she didn't submit anything because, surprise, I didn't rape my wife and it would just show two people having just vanilla sex. Was she just trying to rip money off of me all this time? Like a fake Asian marriage for status or quick lawsuit money? But that didn't make sense at all. I was just a poor teacher and I didn't have any money to begin with. My wife and her parents were completely fine with that, and it was her parents who willingly paid for the apartment down payment and all the furniture, etc. I paid for the wedding. That cost them well above $20,000. They were genuinely trying to make their daughter settle down with me and were hoping for a good life. What the fuck? Nothing made sense. At the time of the divorce lawsuit, Korea was going through the Me Too movement, and the whole society was extremely sensitive to women claiming to be sexually abused. My wife took full advantage of this and did a great job presenting herself as the helpless, meek Korean woman who was powerless before a predatory American man who tricked her into marriage and raped her over and over. It took a while for me to recover, but eventually I got my shit together and hired a lawyer to fight back. But the outcome wasn't looking great. It was basically her words and recordings vs my words in domestic cases claiming sexual abuse were extremely favoring women at the time in Korea. But as the trial progressed with papers and rebuttals being submitted week after week, she made a mistake. She claimed that I showed up near her place to threaten her at a certain time. But I wasn't there, and Korea has sea caves everywhere to prove where I was instead. She lost some credibility to her story because of this incident, and the judge ultimately ruled in my favor. The domestic abuse charge was dropped, and her $20,000 settlement request was denied. So I was married for 2 weeks and got divorced soon after. I won the lawsuit, but I didn't. What the fuck was this all for? I still don't understand. Reddit, is it possible that her mental disorders can manifest in such a short period of time? Over 2 weeks of marriage. Or was she hiding it from me? The whole family? Why the fuck were they all recording everything? To me, it genuinely felt like they wanted this marriage to work out. But at first sign of conflict, they distanced everything and sued me. I don't understand. My life is in ruins. This actually happened 5 years ago, and I never really recovered. I have a hard time trusting anyone. Every night, thoughts run wild with regret and speculations and endless questions. I genuinely love this woman. I thought she loved me too. I really thought we had a great start for 2 weeks, until she left and sued me. Why did they do this? Were they hoping for the best outcome, but at the same time preparing for the worst? Why blame everything on me? That was my story to you. Enjoyed it? Subscribe for more.